Check 1, 2.
Curious about real estate?
Yes!
Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Today, we have podcast number 183. It is a single scenario question. And just a shout out to Chris. You're welcome, Chris. The reason I say you're welcome, Chris always likes the single scenario question. He does not like the grouping of 5 scenario questions as well. Personally, I want to help as many people as I can, so if I can answer 5 questions, that's easier for me or better for me from what I want to give out to you folks. But this single scenario question, it takes up the whole page, so I think we're going to have fun on this one. Before we get started, I just need a big favor from you guys and gals. I need some ratings and reviews on iTunes. I know iTunes does not make it easy to do that. I mean, you've got to go through the account process and building and establishing your account. You've got to, do all of their little stuff that they want you to do just so you can give Michael Quarles a rating and a review. And hopefully it doesn't piss you off so bad that you give me a bad rating and review. Because I really would like to have the good ones and help folks that may not know that we have a show here and what the show's about. So if you guys could do that for me, that's great. Second piece of business, and I know you guys are going to say, Mike, we don't want to hear it anymore, but I'm going to talk about my coaching program. If you want to know more about my coaching program, text the word investor to the number 313131, and it'll send you a little form to fill out. You and I will have a conversation. If our program is a fit for you, we will learn you up on how to buy houses. Here's the question. I live in the Southern California area and have a portfolio of rental properties in the Midwest. I now want to move into fix and flips here in the Southern California market where the price points are exponentially higher, especially in and around LA area. I feel I have the knowledge to move forward in acquiring fixers in the $400,000 to $600,000 range. However, I'm somewhat fearful of jumping into rehabs at such a high price point, given that the assumption that the mistakes that could be made could be just as exponential as the increased price point required to buy relative in other markets. Wow. Again, I feel confident in my knowledge moving forward, with the exception of construction knowledge relating to the rehab. I'm not laughing, but just plan on hopefully working my way through it as I go. I'm sure that you being close in proximity to LA, that you know that these 1,500 square foot single level would-be starter homes fetch a hefty price, even with major work needed. Would you recommend someone like me who is trying to do their first solo fix and flip getting their feet wet by moving to surrounding areas on the outskirts of LA with lower entry points? Or would you feel confident moving forward in the higher end markets I mentioned? Wow. That's all I have to say is wow. Okay, I'm going to try to answer this question. Let me first state that if you think you can, this is probably one of those things you may be wrong. If you think you can't, you're probably right. The only way I would take on a rehab for my first project at a $400,000 to $600,000 price point is if, in fact, the $400,000 or $600,000 to $600,000 price point is not relevant to me. So the amount of money that I'll spend to do this, it's not relevant to my livelihood, to my bank balance. If I've got $1 billion sitting in the bank, spending $400,000 on a house to play around with it to see if I know what I know what I don't know, those kinds of things, yeah, it wouldn't be a big deal. Now, if you're asking me, is it, in my opinion, a good business model to jump into a $400,000 to $600,000 price point doing a fix and flip rehab, yet never rehabbing something before or not having a construction background before for your first time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Please don't. And here's my concern for you. You've not expressed that what you're doing is broken. So why do you want to break it? So you've expressed that you live in Southern California, which good, great. I appreciate that. I live in Bakersfield. I don't appreciate that, but if I lived in Southern California, I'd appreciate that. And you have properties in the Midwest. You don't indicate that your properties in the Midwest are going south or negatives or you don't like them or anything. So if it's not broken, why are you trying to fix it? And certainly, please don't go into a $400,000 to $600,000 price point. Now, here's, at its core, here's the problem. Now, keep in mind, I have built 72 houses. So, I bought dirt, and we went through the designing the home, architectural drawings, engineer studies, the environmental impact reports, all this stuff to build this, these homes and these apartments, 72 of them. And yet I wouldn't go to LA and plop down $400,000 and do a fix and flip rehab. Just wouldn't do it. And I have a lot of experience in, 2x4s and doors. And the reason I wouldn't do it is because I don't know the market. And if you don't know your market, shame on us for attempting to know our market our first time out at such a large level. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't go down there and build a house from ground up or something like that, but I certainly wouldn't buy something that needed to be rehabbed and attempt that. It's the difference between rehabbing and new construction is pretty vast. Just the labor pool itself is different. And unless you're conscientious and have a pulse on your marketplace and what your buyer wants, how do you know, or how would you know, and would you rely upon to tell you, if you didn't know, what your buyer requirements are from an aesthetic perspective at the very least? We think we like what we like, and we think everybody else should like it too, but most of the time, we're wrong. We just like it. No one else should like it. We like whatever we like, and unless you inside of this question, you haven't alluded to that I know my market. I know my backyard. I know what people who would be my buyer want. And until you start doing, your six packs, a lot of six packs, not drinking alcohol. Six packs are when you go and look at houses and find out what's being offered in these houses to the buyers, what recent buyers, why they bought what they bought, what was it within that property, what were the concessions of that property when they bought it. Until you start finding out your market and really doing a lot of research and really hands-on research. We're not talking like Zillow and Trulia and those kinds of things. I'm talking about getting in your car and meeting strangers and having conversations and looking at open houses and talking to realtors and those kinds of things. Until you have that basic understanding of your marketplace, I would stay a long way away from spending $400,000 to $600,000 for a fix and flip rehab. Now, with all of that said, if I did say my bank account wasn't such that I could just burn $400,000, I had to be responsible for it. So, I can't afford to burn $400,000, but I have an extra $400,000 sitting in the bank, and it's only, producing me what it's producing, and I want to do this. Mike, you don't understand. I am driven to do rehab in my backyard. I didn't even need to ask you the question because I want to do it that bad. That's how bad you want to do it. Well, here's what I would do then. If you're driven, you want to do this, there is the LA Investors Club, there's Sam Sadat's club, there's Rosie, what's Rosie's last name? Oh, I can't remember Rosie's last name. But there's 3 or 4 or 5 clubs down there in LA. The LA club, I think, meets every second Tuesday of the month. I mean, go to those things and wear that shirt that says, I have $400,000 in my bank and I don't know what to do with it, but I want to rehab a house in LA. Will you help?
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Get your list of people that have actually done it, not thought about doing it, not read a book on doing it, not, saw a neighbor do it, who's actually done it. Interview those people, like strictly interview them. Like you have a terminal illness and you're finding the person that can cure that. That's a horrible analogy. I apologize to anybody that may have been going through that pain and suffering, but I hope it makes sense. Find someone that knows how to do this stuff in your backyard. And then tell them, hey, I have this chunk of change and let's do this together. And maybe do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Let's find out what you don't know. I know you know what you don't know. I mean, I know you think you know. But let's truly find out what you don't know. And find out what you do know. So you're going to know some stuff. And then after you can cause profitability in a partnership that you're hands in or hands on. So I'm not talking about just being the money person. I want you digging the ditch kind of, concept. When you can do that, you're hiring the subs, you're evaluating neighborhoods, you're determining price point, you're interviewing realtors, you're, all that stuff that goes along with creating wealth through rehabbing. Once you're comfortable and you've done that 3, 4, 5 times with someone who's extremely experienced, jump out, go and do it yourself. Because by that point, 4 or 5 houses, you should be fine. But please don't do it your first one. That just scares me for you. Now, you may be an anomaly. You may be one of these people that you've never shot a 3-point basket, but you can shoot it 20 times, first 20 times out, and you make every one of them. You may be that person. Very few people are, but you may be that person. If that's who you are, if you know without a doubt that you will survive and you can conquer any challenge that life presents to you, please don't spend $400,000 on this one. Please don't. I'd rather you give it to a homeless shelter in LA than spend $400,000 on your first rehab. It'd probably make you more money. Now, so your second question is, should you do it on the outskirts of LA where the price points are less? All you're doing is subtracting the value, but you're not subtracting any of the requirement, any of the needed knowledge. So all you're really, what you're doing is going, okay, if I do it on the outskirts where the price points are lower, I won't lose as much money. Is that a better gamble? No, it's still losing money. Rehabbing, one of the reasons I don't like it anymore is because, man, it's really hands-on. And I'm not talking just 6:30 at Home Depot every morning, Monday through Sunday, meeting contractors there and picking up stuff that you forgot the day before. I'm talking like hands-on, like, buying it, finding it, the impact on the neighborhood, security, colors, textures, types of of things that go into it. Do you do corian? Do you do tile? Do you do, marble? What are your hard surfaces? What are your soft surfaces? What colors? Do you do crown molding? Do you do, 3-inch baseboards? Do you do 2-inch baseboards? Do you use 6-panel doors, 8-panel doors, flush doors? Do you do, aluminum windows? Do you do vinyl windows? Are they white? Are they bronze? What color are they? Do you do a double front door? Do you change anything in the house? Do you redesign the house? Do you take some obsolescence away? Do you leave the obsolescence there? Do you do anything to the landscaping? How do you do all this stuff? If you've never done it before, what we certainly don't want you to do is fail. And I believe that if you don't have the experience to do a rehab, what you in fact will do, especially on your first one, is fail. And I have failed before, not on my first one. Okay? That's how delicate rehabbing is. And for those of you out there that have done rehabs, you absolutely know what I mean when I say that our intentions are good at some point, but we overintend and we overcreate, and our buyer didn't want it. And then all of a sudden we look back at it and we go, man, I didn't have to put that 10 grand in the house doing this stuff because my buyer ultimately didn't care, and I could have made or saved 10 grand. If you're a rehabber, you've experienced overdevelopment. And if you're a rehabber, you've experienced underdevelopment. And if you don't have any knowledge or sounding board or checks and balance systems, what we call experience, how do you know? And so that's why I'm saying go to the LA Club on second Tuesday of the month. Look up Sam Sadat, look up Rosie. I think Rosie's was the naked lady investor. But there's some more in there. San Diego's not too far. Go down to Bill Tan's thing. And, heck, spend some time on the phone talking to Bruce Norris and say, Bruce, what would you do? I'm pretty certain Bruce would tell you you're $400,000 better served not putting it into a rehab for your first time. But find someone that's done it. Make sure that they are qualified to do it. Don't hand them $400,000 to $600,000 in cash. Manage your money yourself. Make sure that they have skin in the game besides their knowledge, because if they don't, it's not going to be appreciated as well for them, and you need them to appreciate it too. Do that 3, 4, 5 times. At some point, I don't care, if you have Michelangelo of rehabbing, I don't care what price point it is, because if they're qualified, if they're super qualified, like every time they touch something, it turns to gold. I don't care what price point it is. You found the person that can teach you how to do this. And what's in it for them? Trust me on this one thing. People ask me a lot, what's in it for me when I do these, podcasts? Today I'm doing 3. When I do podcasts, what's in it for me is to help people. So if someone's already successful, every time they touch a project, it's gold. It doesn't have to be financial for them. Find that person. But make sure you find them. So I'm not going to recommend that you do it in your backyard, you do it on the outskirts of your backyard, or you do it in the Midwest. I'm highly going to recommend, if you decide to do it, to make sure you find someone to do it with that has extreme experience in doing this. And then I'm going to back into it again and say, if it's not broken, why are you trying to fix it? You don't have to see your rentals. You don't have to smell them. You don't have to look at them. Sometimes it's better not to. If the Midwest is working for you, or your business model of your rentals are working for you, why don't you keep working that one? Okay? I hope that makes sense. I apologize if that wasn't the answer you wanted, but my mom always told me, and I had a horrible mother, but the one thing that she did tell me is if I ask the question, expect the answer. And so I've learned through my life to actually hold that as a standard for myself. So if someone asks me a question, I have to give them an answer, whether they like it or not. I think it's a better way of communicating. I appreciate, though, that you sent the question in. I do appreciate that. And I appreciate those of you that listened. I hope everybody got something from this one, because if you're thinking about rehabbing in your next door neighbor's house, and you can buy it for, a dime, and you want to go out there and play as a contractor, unless you are a contractor, unless you have that experience. And I wouldn't do it. And be careful, just because you can paint a house. There's a lot of people that can paint. I mean, everybody can paint. 2-year-olds can paint. They don't paint within the lines, but they can paint. But that, just because you might be, a plumber, doesn't make you an electrician. And it doesn't make you a roofer. And it doesn't make you an interior designer. And it doesn't make you a landscaper. And it doesn't make you someone that understands the buyer's perspective. Those things are all, you pretty much have to learn those things. You have to know your market if you start rehabbing. Better probably than someone who does what I do, which is wholesaling, which is buying something and the as-is value, a percentage of that, and then selling it at the as-is value to someone that wants to go in rehab. I want someone else to take the risk. I don't want to take the risk. That risk is too expensive. It's too stressful. We have so many seconds on this earth, and I don't want to spend them at Home Depot anymore. Heck, I can be a Home Depot employee. I can tell people where parts are. I don't want to do that anymore. So be really conscientious of that for everybody that does rehabs. I'm not saying it's not something that can make you a bucket load of money, because it can. It can also lose you a bucket load of money, and sometimes more than a bucket. It can sometimes kill a real estate investor. Yes, it can kill a real estate investor. Their enthusiasm, their financial ability. There's a lot of reasons rehabbing should not be done by people that have never done it before. And I understand. How do you get experience unless you start doing it? You get experience by an apprentice program with somebody. That's why when you get a contractor's license, you have to have a 4-year apprentice program working under a contractor before the state of California allows you to say, hey, I'm qualified now to take this test and prove to the state of California that I actually am a journeyman. Well, understand that requirement we should hold to as well as real estate investors from a rehab perspective. Just don't jump in. I wouldn't do it. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.